Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be going over 7 martial arts myths, things that are commonly believed that are just not true. I'm going to be coming at this from my personal experience as a karateka, so my martial art is karate, but this applies to all martial arts. So there's going to be a few controversial ones in here that some of you may disagree with, but these are from my own experience and from others I've trained with. So the first one, and probably the most problematic one, is that people think that a black belt makes you invincible or it makes you the ultimate fighter. A black belt is, whilst it is a nice achievement, a nice stepping stone and a nice milestone to reach, the black belt is just another level. A black belt doesn't make you the best fighter there is. It's just a step along the way. For most dojos, it takes 4, 5, 6 years to get a black belt in karate. And karate, as we know, is a lifelong pursuit. So there's so much more to learn after the black belt. But the black belt gives you the fundamental, the basics and the movement patterns in order to better prepare yourself for a situation. However, it doesn't make you invincible. There's a lot more involved in fighting and self-defense than simply getting a black belt. Delivering techniques and stuff is one thing, but having the mindset to be able to fight and to be able to defend yourself is a different thing completely. And also self-defense and martial arts are not exactly the same thing always, because martial arts rely on 2 people consensually fighting or sparring a lot of the time, whereas self-defense is kind of against your will. You're defending yourself and you have to get out of a situation and you weren't prepared to get into that situation in the first place. Entering a dojo, bowing at the door as you come in and onto the mat, and sparring with a partner that you've agreed to spar with is a very different situation to being outside in the street and being attacked by surprise. So again, as much as it's a nice milestone to reach, the black belt is simply just a step along the way. Second myth, and the one that I've addressed quite a few times on my channel here, is that weight training and martial arts don't go together. Okay, a stronger body is going to perform everything better. The argument often is like, you see a bodybuilder, a heavily muscled bodybuilder fighting against maybe a trained martial artist. And of course the martial artist wins because the bodybuilder doesn't have experience. This is not talking about pure bodybuilding against martial arts. This is talking about a martial artist who also does weight training. Okay, so they have the fundamental techniques and the martial arts experience in addition to the extra strength and muscle and size that comes with weight training. Adding a strength program or a weight training program or a bodybuilding program to your martial arts can only benefit. It doesn't slow you down. It makes you faster. It makes you stronger. It makes you more resilient to injury. And it can also make you more flexible and mobile if you're using full range of motion in your exercises. All athletes from high level sports, they all have strength training programs, because nowadays we understand that strength training is important to improving performance. And it's not just simply about doing a few press ups and a few sit ups and a few squats in a dojo. This is not enough. It's a start maybe, but it's not enough for a well-rounded, well-structured, progressively overloaded training program. It's important to make sure you have that in your setup if you want to get the most out of your martial arts. If you're just doing it purely as a hobby, a few times a week, then of course it doesn't matter. Just stick with the martial art and enjoy what you're doing. But if you want to take it to the next level, strength training is going to really accelerate that progress. Just very quickly before we go on, I'm now in a partnership with Art Martial Clothing, a martial arts lifestyle brand who produce all kinds of clothing with martial arts designs on, really nice looking designs. Okay, at the moment I'm wearing their Fundamentals range t-shirt, and I've also got their Fundamentals tracksuit bottoms on, which are really nice and flexible, and I can move really well in them. I'm going to put a link in the description of this video with a discount code. So if you want to check that out, take a look after this video, just click on the link and it'll take you through to see all the stuff they've got. So number 3, and probably quite a controversial one. This is more karate specific, but it also happens in Taekwondo and a few other martial arts as well, traditional martial arts. I posted a short video on the channel about hikite, which is the pull-in hand that we make when we're punching. So you'll see often, one hand going forwards, one hand coming backwards. And I said that the pull-in hand is for gripping and pulling your opponent. And of course, there was lots of comments from people saying, no, it's not that. It's for generating more power, which has been debunked a number of times by many highly respected sensei. It's even documented in old texts from, Funakoshi himself, that the hand is for pulling the opponent into strikes and stuff, and for grappling. Karate is not purely a striking art. as much as people think it is. Karate has a lot of grappling, especially if we look in the kata. You know, why would you have one hand returning to the hip and one hand extended as a punch? It makes no sense. You know, a boxer wouldn't do this. And if it's the best, most efficient way of punching, then a boxer would take that on, because surely a boxer would want to punch in the best way possible. You know, a boxer would have their hands up, guarding the face. We should do the same. You know, if we don't have a grip on their wrist, their collar, their sleeve, their head or something, then keep the hand up next to the face as we're punching. You know, we don't need to make a hikite to make more power. You can make the same kind of power without making hikite at all. This hand is next to the face, guarding, and the front hand can do the work. The argument is that it assists the rotation of the body, but we can still rotate the body without that hand coming back. You know, you can still work on rotating that body without this hand doing any kind of work. It feels stronger because there's feedback inside your body. You receive feedback because you feel that nice pull against, you get that nice pull against the body where you feel some feedback and you think, oh, that feels very powerful. But I don't want to feel the power in myself. I want the power to be transferred into them. I want them to feel how powerful it is, not myself. You know, so of course it feels nice to make that kimei and that nice sound and feeling against the body. But really, I want it to be transferred into them. So if I've not got a grip on them, I want to throw a punch with my hand, covering my face. Yeah, hip, shoulder, foot, the floor. We can still press through as we normally would do, but I don't need to drop that hand into hikite. You know, it's in the name. It's literally called pulling hand. It translates to pulling hand. So it's about gripping, pulling your opponent off balance. You know, like judo pulls. You know, Kazushi Waza, pulling someone off balance. We should be thinking about that in terms of our application of our techniques, and not thinking about power generation with that hand pulling back. I'm sure there'll be many comments disagreeing with me, and let's hear it. That's fine. We can discuss it in the comments, but just try it for yourself. You know, get a bag, get a partner with a shield or something, hit it with the hand covering the face, then hit it with the hand pulling back to the hip, and see if there's any difference. Even if there is a difference, even if there is a little bit more power by pulling the hand back to the hip, the risk of me getting caught whilst I'm punching is not worth the extra power anyway. Even if I get 10% more power pulling my hand back to the hip when I punch, I still won't want to take that risk. I would rather lose the 10% in power and keep a cover next to the face. It makes more sense to me to have a cover, you know, because it doesn't matter how powerful your punch is. If you get caught on the way in, you're not landing that punch. Yeah, so I like to think, if there's nothing in this hand, leave it where it is. Yeah. If you have a grip, okay, then we can pull and manipulate the opponent this way, but keep your head protected. Okay, a little bit of a lighter one now. So the next myth, and I don't know if it's even really a myth as such or a bit of an urban legend, but there used to be, at least, people would used to say that you have to inform an attacker that you're a black belt or that you're trained in karate before you defend yourself. This is, of course, absolute rubbish. You know, I don't know how that really originated, but if you're going to defend yourself, you have to defend yourself, you know, and telling them that you're a black belt is not going to de-escalate the situation at all. You know, for a start, if you do have the opportunity to talk to somebody before they're attacking you, you want to try and de-escalate in different ways. But certainly by giving them away, the idea that you're trained and can handle yourself is probably not good to do necessarily. You know, if you're attacked, you have to react with a trained response that is reasonable, that fits the law. But of course, the most important thing is to go home safe. You know, I used to hear it quite a lot. It's a silly one and has no backing as far as I'm aware. Not in the UK anyway. Okay, myth number 5 is that you have to be young to start martial arts. This couldn't be further from the truth. And in fact, I generally prefer my students to start a little bit later because they have a better understanding from the very beginning. You know, I don't really take children from 4 or 5 years old as such, because they're just not mature enough to understand the concepts that we're trying to teach. And also what happens then is often the kids start early and they kind of burn out by the time they're 8 or 9, and that's it. You know, their karate's finished. They move on to something different. Whereas if they're a little bit older, they can kind of want to do it themselves rather than being, you know, taken by or influenced by mum and dad. And they can enjoy it, you know, they can understand what they're doing and they can build a better foundation as a result of that. But a lot of my students have started as adults, you know, in their 30s, 40s, 50s even, and have gained a hell of a lot from karate. If you're considering starting karate or a martial art, regardless of age, there is never a wrong time to start. You know, you'll never be younger than today, so just get going. Try a class out, try a few classes out, see what you like, and you know, you'll 3-4 months time, momentum will be taking over, and you'll be on your way. Number 6 is closely related to the last point, actually, that you have to be very flexible to be a martial artist, or you have to be very flexible to be good at martial arts. This is also not true. You know, of course, it helps to be flexible and to be able to do the splits and all this kind of thing. But karate and most martial arts, in fact, all martial arts, are not about kicking high, you know, flashy high kicks. The most effective techniques are techniques you can do without a warm-up. Because, of course, if you're going to try and defend yourself, you've not got the luxury or the opportunity to warm up beforehand. So flexibility is nice. Of course, it's good for your health to be more mobile and more flexible. And it's, of course, more enjoyable to be able to throw higher kicks and stuff. But absolutely not essential to be able to throw those kind of kicks. You know, low kicks, you know, stamping kicks into the legs, groin kicks, snapping kicks into the groin, knees, elbows, all this kind of thing. Close range stuff is the most effective stuff. Yeah, so don't worry about doing the splits. I can't do a full split myself. I've never been able to get all the way down to the ground, you know, very close, but not completely down to the ground. Different people's hip structures are different. Some people's hips will allow it a little bit easier. Others may not. It hasn't affected me. You know, my kicks are fine, and my karate has not been affected as a result of that. There's a lot more that goes into being a good martial artist than simply high, flexible kicks. And the final point is that martial arts is all about fighting. Okay? It's not all about fighting. Of course, it is based in fighting techniques and strategies and concepts, but there's a lot more to it and a lot more to be gained from it than simply just being able to fight. You know, if you want to just be able to fight, you could just all meet up with a group of people and fight each other for an hour, a few times a week, and you know, you'd get pretty good at fighting. There's a lot more to it, especially in the traditional martial arts. You know, through the development of, you know, training technique and kata and the respect that comes with it. It has a lot more benefits than simply just learning to fight. If we are training, say, 3 or 4 times a week in karate for your entire life, and all you're doing it for is to prepare for somebody to maybe attack you one day, or to maybe, you know, have a fight, then it seems like quite a wasted life, really, doesn't it? You know, if you're constantly paranoid about getting attacked, maybe there's different things you could do to sort of prevent that, rather than dedicating your entire life to training 4 or 5 times a week in karate. You know, of course, training in a martial art and having the correct approach to training is going to increase your chances in a self-defense situation or in a fight. But there's so many more benefits to be gained from training in martial arts over a long period of time. I said earlier, you know, the mobility, the mental side that comes with it. You know, confidence, like self-confidence, self-belief. You know, achieving things periodically can do wonders for your confidence. The social side, you know, meeting other people, having time to yourself, because a lot of people are just going to work, coming home, going to work, coming home. You know, having something else in your life that you can kind of focus on and escape from that kind of life is also really beneficial mentally. You know, the exercise benefits that we all know, you know, better cardiovascular health, better muscular strength and endurance, all these kind of things make up the whole of martial arts. You know, so martial arts is of course about fighting, but it's about a whole lot more as well. Go and check out some of my other videos on here. Click on my channel, go and check them out. Again, check out the Art Martial clothing brand. Maybe get yourself something or somebody else for Christmas. That discount code and link will be in my video description. So I'll see you next time. Thank you very much.